day, everyone. Today, as you recall with the last episode, episode 1, we started our XMD job and got it to the point that you see right now, where we have some parting line and whatnot in there. So the next step really is to continue the mold design from there. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to bring true actual solids in as our core and cavity blocks. One thing we can do with XMD is we can actually start and finish the design just as it is, even though we don't have a full solid and we have our parting line and whatnot. But we also can swap in solids anytime we want, and regardless of what level that solid is at, and we can always just re-swap in later as they get finished if we want. So by bringing in those solids, we can start utilizing XMD's features to their maximum potential. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by we're going to bring in a couple solids, and we're going to swap in the core and cavity blocks. So these solids can be created in any software you want. So for example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in this core block. Okay, so this is your current core block right now. What XMD does when it generates the original blocks is it generates them as a stock block. So as you can see, this is just a stock square block. And then we have several things that we can do to continue our XMD job. One option is to trim that solid to a trim sheet. So we can trim it to a trim sheet that represents the parting line and the core part data, and we'd have our core block done. So we do have the ability to model it right in here, or we have the ability to bring in a model from whether it's another system or another key creator user, any way that we feel that works best for us. We can bring that model in and we can work with it. It doesn't matter what software that model comes from, it will work exactly the same. So one thing we're going to do is we're going to bring in the core block. This is the core solid block complete. Okay, so it's got the clearance kind of shown out with face colors and everything else. And what we're going to do is we're going to use a feature in Key Creator where we can swap one solid for another. So we're going to say plate solid management. I'm going to tell it to replace plate solid with a different one. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to say select the solid that we want to replace, which is this core block, and we're going to replace it with this new solid here. Okay? So what XMD does is it's going to re-swap it in. It's going to make sure that the new holes and everything are in place and in that new solid, and it's also going to recheck sizes. So if you started the job and you kind of just really roughly decided what your block sizes would be, especially the height of the block, when the solid is complete, XMD will check those new heights and make sure that the material list is up to date according to the actual true finished height. And then we can do the same thing with the cavity side. So if we pull up the cavity side, okay, and I'm going to bring in the solid. So this solid here. So once again, it doesn't matter where the solid came from. It could be modeled in direct, or it could be translated in from another software. We can translate in Step and IGES and all the other major CAD softwares that are out there. We can import all that stuff direct, and we can utilize it. So there's no messing with the solid after. We can just bring it in and just like you're seeing here, just replace it. So I'm going to go ahead and replace this solid with this one. And once again, we're just going to tell it to reapply it, and it will understand that block completely now for when we want to add water and everything else. It's going to really know what to do because it's going to fully be able to utilize the shape of that solid. Okay. So that's how you would take an existing solid that's already in your XMD job and swap it for a new one. So for example, what might happen in real world is I may have this solid, but it might not have all my clearance and vents and all the rads and everything done yet. So I might bring that solid in, so at least I have a really, something really nice to work with. And then when the modeler finishes up the solid and gets all the clearance and vents and the rads in, I just do the same exact thing. I just say swap this solid with this new one, and away you go. So it's very easy to do. And what it does is it updates everything once again right on the fly. So as you can see, here's my core plan view, and if I rotate that, you'll see it's all 2D. Okay? So it's all updated based on that new solid now. So if I make changes to that solid, these plan views would be updated automatically as well. And that same goes for your sections. All your sections are recut accordingly. So very quick, easy, straightforward. Okay. Now we do have another piece of plate management, which is creating new solids, something that's maybe more custom. So like adding inserts to your job or anything like that. If you want to add an insert, what we can do is we have the ability to say here, take this solid, which can be, once again, it could have been modeled up within Key Creator, it could have been modeled in a different package. It doesn't matter. We can utilize it the same way. And what we're going to do is just say we want to make this an XMD component. So I'm going to hide the core block here. And as you can see here, I have this solid. Okay. Once again, it doesn't matter where it came from. I could have translated it in from another package. I could have modeled it right in here. I could have modeled it in a different Key Creator session. It doesn't matter. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is just tell XMD to utilize this as an XMD component. So I'm going to tell it to add, say convert solid to XMD component, and I'm going to pick on my solid, and now I can tell it, do I want it to be a core half or a cavity half component? So I'm going to say it's going to be a core half plate. I can also make them children of very specific components if I want. So if this was like a really minor component, like maybe a little tiny mounting plate for something, I may make that, if that mounting plate was mounted to say one of the rails, I may tell it to make it a child of the rail, and that allows me to turn on levels and stuff a lot easier utilizing our XMD lists. So I don't have to actually specifically go through the levels. So I'm going to go ahead and make it a core half plate. Say OK. All right, and I'm going to tell it this bottom face is the main face, and I'm going to pick this line. And all we're doing is giving it direction for how to check for sizes. So if I have something that's really got a really oddball shape, I can actually force it if I need to go a certain way. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make this material P20, and the user plate is going to be insert 1. Okay? And I'm going to go ahead and say OK. So now what happens is if I go and I want to view, I'm going to go to my display here, or my drawing, sorry, I'm going to say view 3D plates, and as you can see, the insert is now in there. So I don't ever have to deal with levels. This stuff is all taken care of for me. So all my navigation can all be done for 3D in these 3D plates. Very, very, very efficient, much easier than sifting through an assembly tree or a level list. That can become very complex and very heavy. So now just to kind of explain what I was saying before with making things a child of something, what happens is if, for example, if I go to retainer plate, XMD has automatically created certain things as a child of that retainer plate, and that's these components here. So by saying show components, I can show my return pins that are actually a child of these plates. And I can also go in here and I can do the same thing. I can say bottom clamp plate and say show components, and all these pillar supports are all child plates. I can also use my control and shift keys to pick multiple plates if I'd like, say show components, and it shows you all those components. So I don't have to ever browse through a level list or through an assembly tree to find this stuff. And that is how you swap in existing solids and make new solids in your XMD job.